Hi everyone. I'm Sonia Alejandra Rodriguez. Welcome to another book talk video celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Pura Belpre Award. I'm accompanied by
Emily Aguilo-Perez. So we're going to start with Esquivel, Space Age Sound Artist, written by Susan Wood, illustrated by Duncan Tonatiuh. This was an honor book for illustration in 2017. And it is a biographical picture book about Juan Garcia Esquivel. So let's get to it.
Yeah, what did you think of this book? I'm gonna show a picture of Juan Garcia's book because it's a biographical book.
Oh yeah. So I rereading this book for today, I remember so much the illustrations, and I talk a lot about illustrations usually, but just like rereading the story was so interesting. His life, but also the way that he got into music and into this very experimental type of music was really interesting. So I enjoyed rereading it after a few years, I guess, of not reading it, carefully. Like I would look at the pictures, but not necessarily read all of the biographical stuff.
Yeah, and it's in a very like classic like Tonatiuh style, right? Like you have like the side profile. That's how you know it's him,
Yeah.
right? And the Mystic Codex, like that's his style. And yeah, same. Every time I look at any of like Tonatiuh's like books, I'm always just so impressed at like the texture, the details, the movement, like all of how that is captured in the illustration. And um, very much in his style, right? He uses like photographs to like include texture. So like if you look at, I think I was looking at like one of the brick stone like pavements, and it's actually like brick or like
Yes.
stone, right? And so you can see, like, if you look closely, you can see it. I have the paperback version, and the details aren't as great in the paperback, but in the hardcover, like because the pages are like thicker and the color is sharper, I'm sure you could see it a lot more, right?
Yes,
Like,
you see the texture of and as you said, his style is so distinctive, and mixing the old mixed deck with contemporary. But yes, that the road, it looks so real because he's using, like, these pictures of real stuff imposed on the illustrations that he creates. So it provides its texture, and because his style is like profile and it's not necessarily 3D, it's not three-dimensional, the textures really provide that depth,
yeah,
that make them look very real.
yeah, and right, and you can see it, like you can see it just from like the details of like the pants, right? That's some sort of textile, right, for pants. You could see it in the hair, right? I love that he always uses like some sort of like hair texture, like picture of hair to make it look like hair, right? And so you could see like, yo, that's hair. And it's always just very impressive to see how he does that. In his little description at the end of the book, where he talks about how he created the art, he talks about Duncan Tonatiuh talks about feeling um, very similar to like Juan Esquivel in terms of like creating new art, right? An art that wasn't available before, that might have been a little quirky at the beginning, but that now has become like its own sense of style, right? Folks recognize it for like they pair the style with the artist, right? We know that this is a Duncan Tonatiuh like illustration. And I thought that was really cool, the way that the subject matter connected with the artist's life and style.
Yeah. I was thinking about the story of Esquivel, how it started, like by age 17, conducting this orchestra for a comedy show. And then, but just thinking about how, and again, like Duncan Tonatiuh as an artist, also kind of having to bring something to life through a specific medium. But then with Esquivel, having, they have the example of the skit, of this man walking a poodle down the street. So he has to visualize, how do you tell that story through music, and so how he's directing, the drums to go one way, and the what is it, the clarinets to kind of sound like the dog. Yes, that one. So it also made me think of the Peter and the Wolf, that that because each instrument defines a specific character, so they have like their specific sound. But in here, just how he had to be really imaginative and creative with the sound to tell this story, and then experimenting with other things to create that unique sound that he was known for.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's something that I take for granted as like I watch TV or movies. Like it's the sound that is always in the background, or like sounds or music instruments associated with certain like movements or actions that can be like very subtle. And if you're not paying attention, right, it can be easily dismissed, right? But here we have the story specifically about this artist, right, whose responsibility or whose talent or whose like a celebrity came from finding the sounds that go with those actions or those movements and to tell the stories. And again, I always think of like layering, right? Everything is so layered and it's very obvious from this story.
Yeah. And so young too.
Oh yeah.
At age 17, conducting
Prodigy, yeah.
Yeah, and like being in charge of creating the sound for a show. So that was really, that was something, a detail that I had forgotten about him, about the book, and then rereading, I was like, oh, 17. That's great, and also a lot.
Yeah, and again, I always love like reading books, especially like biographies, like in picture book that highlight like youth and like these like extraordinary like circumstances and their extraordinary talent and just how much impact they can have at such a young age, right? Like that's such a powerful message for youth, right? That like sort of breaking down this idea that like adults are the ones that have all the influence, right? But I mean that's not true. I also liked in this story that we see Esquivel traveling a lot because of his art and his talent, right? He's in a little village, but then he moves into the city, Mexico City specifically, and then he goes to New York City. And so I like this idea of like your art, or his art, right? So one's art, giving you like mobility to be able to see and experience different things.
Mm-hmm. I'm always with all the picture books really drawn to like how are the pictures telling the story, and especially in this case because you have a different illustrator and a different like a different writer and illustrator, so how they're bringing together, the information in a way that it's really engaging in the story itself of the subject, and then also how are the illustrations telling that story. But I think especially because it is a book about music, I mean, it is about a musician, just how you can transmit the music through a medium that doesn't have any sound. So that's why I find this book so particularly engaging and so interesting. Yes, because it's you can sort of hear the music and the sounds through the pictures. And there's this one page that I love.
Oh yeah.
Like I can hear the boompa doompa or the oh yeah, because of the way that the letters are written, and they're kind of carrying the sound of the instrument with the size of the letters, but also like the way that they're drawn, the typeset that it's being used, the way that they're a wave or a circle. Yes. So like it's a really fascinating approach to show music in a medium that doesn't have sound. Yes.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Right? How do you talk about an artist like a musician in particular in a book, right, in a medium that doesn't have sound, and try to capture like what that music is, right? Particularly like with like Esquivel, which like the narration is trying to highlight, or Susan Wood is trying to highlight, right? That he had a very unique sound, right? That made him different. And so how do you capture a unique sound, right? Like you said, in a medium that doesn't have it. And yeah, I think Duncan did such a great job at like adding like those little elements, those sounds, right? And I can even just imagine like, well, just like you did, right? Like even children and adults trying to like make those sounds, right? Read the words along, which just already sounds super fun, right? And the uniqueness that'll come from that. Yeah.
I feel like it makes it, you know, after, so for me, I hadn't heard of Esquivel until I read this book for the first time back in 2017 or 16. So that part is also, I think, very important, that we have these biographies of maybe like really important people who we maybe don't hear about as much. And so I feel like, I mean, not only was he a cool person with cool music, but also just someone that had I not read this book, I maybe wouldn't have heard about. So, and even like as a Latina, I hadn't been familiar with his music. So I feel like that's also a big, important part of, you know, these biographical picture books that, or books in general that highlight important people that we don't hear about as much.
Yeah. I agree. And I think that's probably why I like so many of like biographical, just like illustrated books, or like even just if we're talking about the Pura Belpre Award, there are so many like biographical books that have gotten the award. And I think it's precisely because of that like these books highlight, right, personalities, characters, artists, musicians who some may be known, but some may not be known to like a larger audience, and those who like deserve like more attention, right? And I was looking at the title, right, Space Age Sound Artist, right? And I think at some point in the narration, they talk about Esquivel, like their sound just being so like out of this world, so new, right? And to me, like futuristic, right? It was this here you have this person, this Latinx person, Mexican person, like creating like sounds of the future. And then that to me felt just really empowering and really powerful to see.
Yes.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today about Esquivel, Space Age Sound Artist by Susan Wood and Duncan Tonatiuh. Everybody get this book. All the links are in the description detail thing. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you.